Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Tiffany with Straight Stitching, where I help new quilters gain confidence one stitch at a time. Today, I am coming to you from a different environment or a different place in my home. I'm at my desk and not in my quilting area. Today, I want to share with you my predictions for 2026 as it relates to quilting. So that I don't ramble on, I have created a few slides to help me guide the conversation to stay on track. So let's go ahead and get started. 26 quilting predictions by me, Tiffany Bynum at Straight Stitching. So for today's presentation, I have three main topics that I want to talk about. One being the aesthetic shift, design is scaling up, and then lastly, I want to go over how to quilt smarter in 2026. So the aesthetic shift. What is going on? So white is changing. The biggest challenge to quilting right now is that white really isn't white anymore. And I don't mean that by virtue of whites aren't the same white, and if you get them from different dye batches, they're not the same. What I mean is more of the use of white. So for years, we've used stark white as our default background. And there's nothing really wrong with that, but it does really create a high contrast, very sharp lines, and visually it can feel a little harsh. And so what we're finding is that if you switch to warmer tones, so creamy off whites, everything softens up a little bit. And the seams feel calmer and the colors feel more intentional. And I've even seen quilters starting to use like not just like creamy off whites, but even like some whites that are a little bit more grays and just various colors as the background. So that's something that you might want to consider for your quilting in 2026. And so in addition to like whites changing in terms of their use, the color palette is also shifting. And that kind of shifts every year. Um, every year we expect to see what are the hot colors going to be. For 2026, the colors aren't loud. I will say that they're confident. Not too long ago, Pantone introduced their 2026 color of the year, and it's Cloud Dancer, which is essentially white. But several others have also introduced or released what their colors for 2026 will be. And so we have Etsy. Etsy is looking at a nice, really blue color, and it's called Patina Blue. For all my quilters out there, we know that Kona Cottons is going with Wander, which is a really nice, vibrant green. And then we have Color, which is WGSN, I think. They're going with a color that they're calling transformative teal. So it's a really nice kind of jewel tone color. So Pantone, in addition to releasing that their color of the year was going to be Cloud Dancer, they've also introduced several different palettes. So pairing this Cloud Dancer up with other colors, just to see, to give you some more options with how to use the Cloud Dancer. So one of those aesthetics or palettes is Comfort Zone. So this pairs the Cloud Dancer with different warm kind of earth-colored earth tones, and it gives a very cozy and grounded feel. And then they have Take a Break. This is a bit more playful, still kind of some earth tones, but more desert inspired. So there's some warm yellows and pinks, and it really gives a feel of hospitality. Next up, they have Glamour and Gleam. So this is more richly colored fabrics. So these are like your deep blacks, your vintage wine, graphite. And the intention is when you pair these all together, it gives a bit of a more sophisticated look. There's Tropic Tonalities. This is always a crowd pleaser. It gives a lot of energy. There's lots of vibrant colors. When I see these colors, I immediately think like vacation. So they are, in fact, saying that these are vacation-inspired colors. So bright and sunny, cheery, happy, keeps you energetic and going. And then there's atmospheric. So these are more blues and grays. So they're they've paired Cloud Dancer with aqua gray, Nantucket breeze, some purple hues, and these colors together give a good feeling of wellness and modern design. Then there's light and shadow. So this focuses on tonal contrast. So it blends the Cloud Dancer with understated hues that kind of dissolve into a shadowy shade. So some greens, some browns, purples, but in different hues. So not like the atmospheric that we just saw. And then lastly, they have powdered pastels. These are um, it pairs the Cloud Dancer with gentle combinations, subtle shifts in like the same colors, so different hues of the purples and blues. Um, Not my favorite, but an option. So when you look at the various companies that are putting forth what they are predicting as the color of the year for 2026, I've spelled crystal wrong as well. So um, and what Pantone is doing, when I think about it, I think we're going to see pattern designers leaning more towards comfort zone or atmospheric. So these are kind of your warm earth tones, and then your blues. You can't really ever go wrong when you're using neutrals as your color palette or combination of blues. So then going on to the second topic, design is scaling up. And what do we mean by that? So this is another big shift in 2026, and it's scale. If you've been quilting for any number of years, and certainly traditionally, we've done it by chopping our beautiful fabrics up into tiny pieces. And so what's changing is you're going to begin to see more patterns and designs leaning towards larger pieces. So um, this is actually, if you look at some of the quilters that do more modern type, scenic designs, they're larger scaled, larger pieces of fabric, fewer seams. And they're designs that you kind of let the fabric breathe. So there's just, they're not all bunched together. You can see them a bit more clearly. So I believe that we're going to be moving more towards cohesive on purpose designs. And in that, that's going to change, I think, the overall scale, right? So if you look at the two mock-ups of quilts that we have here, they're both approximately the same size. The one is 65 inches squared, the other one is 66 inches squared. The 65-inch one is made up of 49 9-inch squares, and then the other is made up of 16 larger squares. So it's the same block, same skills are needed, but completely different feels in terms of the overall aesthetic, and then also different feels in terms of the quilter's experience in making it. So I think a lot of quilters now, as the demographic is getting younger, people don't really have a whole lot of time to be quilting and sewing and piecing little pieces of material together. So I think this is why we're going to start seeing more larger scale designs. And then lastly, how to quilt smarter in 2026. So I have three suggestions or three areas that I think that people can look at. One is fabric first. So in 2026, I think that we want to make sure that our block is supporting the fabric and not the other way around. So when we're choosing the patterns that we want to make, I think it would be a good idea to start choosing them with the thought of how do you want to highlight the fabric that you have. So you're not necessarily cutting up large scale images into smaller pieces to fit a block design. You're choosing your block designs and your patterns so that you can feature different parts of your fabric. And then strategy number two is scale before complexity. So if a quilt feels flat or overwhelming, try to make it bigger. And so we just saw that before in the last slide there, where you really can take the same quilt block, and if you make it a bit larger, it's a totally different feel. And then lastly, let space do the work. So don't be afraid to have open, empty space, so more background in your quilts and in your patterns. It creates intentionality, and then again, it also helps to provide a visual for your fabric to stand out. So those are my predictions for 2026. I don't know if any of them will come true. Hopefully, as I am designing my patterns throughout the year, I'm cognizant of this and keep these things in mind, especially as it relates to the design and the use of smaller pieces. I mean, I myself don't have the time or the desire to cut like 500 2-inch squares. So we'll see what 2026 brings us. In the meantime, I would love to have your feedback on this video. So please comment, like the video,